Be silent in that solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again in death around thee, and their will shall overshadow thee. Be still. Greetings, Poe fans. We are back tonight live and in person. And I'm Carmen Bolden.
I'm Jeanie Smith.
And we are
the Poetastic 2.
And we welcome tonight our other POEcast friends and family beyond the Oblong Box. And we'll let Virginia and Levi introduce themselves.
Take it away.
All right. And thank you for that introduction. Me and Virginia don't have nearly as good of a little back and forth as you guys do, but we're going to start thinking of one now.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
I'm Levi. I'm the co-host and creator of Beyond the Oblong Box podcast. My lovely co-hostess there, Virginia Poe.
Hi.
Cool.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, that's me. Okay.
That's you.
Sorry. Wow. I think I needed a little more caffeine today.
I totally understand.
It's okay.
Hi, I'm Virginia Poe. I am, yes, the other half of Beyond the Oblong Box, and I am happy to be here.
Yes, and we are very happy you guys are here. This is really kind of a long-term plan that, like Virginia, when we met in October,
yeah,
and
I
now
know.
it's March, and we're making this happen. And I hope we can do this again, in the future as well, because I think it's always awesome to be able to put like-minded Poe people together and talk about all the things.
4 brains are better than 2.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. So we came together tonight. So this is our Poe Places episode, one of our 6 degrees. And so we decided to talk about Poe's roots, his ancestry, and all the relatives. Unfortunately, there is not a ton of information on his genealogy. No. I wish someone, and maybe we need to go into the rabbit hole and dig further.
Oh yeah.
Don't look too excited, Jeanie.
That rabbit hole can go way. And Alice in the Wonderland. It's a wonder why she ever came out.
That's
so.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially when it comes to genealogy, trying to trace my own family background, yes. I don't even want to think about delving into something else, especially when we're talking about going to the Isles of Ireland and England and those places, because so much of the history, especially of the United States, deals in just that area.
Yeah.
So it kind of gets a little bogged down, and unless you have the strict uppity ups, I want to use that.
Yeah.
The wealth of that area. Yeah. They're a little bit well known, but
documentation.
Yeah.
Documentation that far back is just
exactly
not that great. And it's just tricky. It's like a puzzle. It's a very complicated puzzle. And you go down a rabbit hole, and sometimes you get nowhere, and it's frustrating.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
And spellings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Spellings.
Oh, gosh,
names.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, because between the pronunciation and the names, I know, especially in my own family tree, I had to just find the different things, because they would pronounce it as one way, but they would spell it something totally different.
Yeah.
Because some of the education doesn't, and especially those that didn't speak English, much less write or read English. So, but
true.
Right.
So, we can go back as far as we can for the moment, which lands us into where, Carmen?
We went back, and again, not a lot of information, but Poe's great-great-grandfather was also named, it was named David. There's a lot of Davids.
There really are.
What we could find on him, he was born in 1670. He was a farmer. And he is from Dring, the parish of Kildaren, Cavan, Ireland.
Yeah, County Cavan.
Is it Cavan? Okay, I wonder.
County Cavan.
Again, it was like, how do you pronounce all these names? So thank you for that.
That'd be me. You have to ask.
Oh
Because even the Irish always pronounce things differently.
Very true.
And
Very
Scottish, you throw the Scottish in there too, it's going to be something different totally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's Poe's great-grandparents. John was the son of David. He was born in 1720, died 1756, and he was from the same parish. And then he married Jane, and they immigrated to Pennsylvania from Ireland in the mid 1700s. I know when Levi jumped on early, we were talking that some dates say 1739, some say 1745, and so it's like just mid 1700s. Virginia, do you know?
Yeah. So it's more like they've pinpointed one of the documents that I found not long ago has 1749 to 1750.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, I guess like a 6-month wiggle room. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Yeah. It's
we
like,
just kind of go with
4950.
Mid 18th century.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Because John was, I mean, he was obviously born there, but so was their son David.
Yes.
And actually, I'm about 30 minutes away from Lancaster. So.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
And I have come to find that there are a lot of Poes here. So if I get brave enough, I'm going to try to see if I can introduce myself and not seem too crazy.
Oh, you should. They probably, well, and if they embrace Edgar, they, I would think that they would embrace, the being asked about it.
Creepy aside, believe it or not, my best friend's mother, we were down at her house, and one of my best friend's relatives was talking about how they were a little confused because they had seen in the paper an obituary for a woman whose name was Virginia Poe that was not too far from here. And they stopped for a second because they're like, oh my gosh, Virginia, and they're like, wait a minute, we just saw her the other.
Oh my gosh,
like, what happened?
And I'm like, oh no, that's not me. She was quite a bit older than I was, and she was a married Poe, not a biological Poe.
Gotcha.
So to speak. But doesn't matter. She's still a Poe.
Yeah.
Still shares a name with me that I was like, oh, now that's creepy.
Yes.
That is creepy. Virginia, we don't actually want you to be here beyond the Oblong Box. We want you to just be here.
Exactly.
Like hanging out around the box.
Right. Waiting to go in the box.
Yes.
You're the decoration outside the box, not in the box. Okay.
Yes.
So let's just stay out of the box.
I've been known to lurk in Westminster, so just saying.
All right.
Well, and we were also telling Levi that, when I discovered it was the Lancaster area, that's where they ended up before moving to Baltimore. We had a trivia question Thursday night based on Monday night, based on the presidents. And it was, what president who died in 1869 retired back to Lancaster as a bachelor? And we got it right because we had to think, okay, Civil War, we know it's not Lincoln, obviously. And then Jeanie
not a
came
bachelor.
Up, and Jeanie came up with it, and it was Buchanan. And so I was like, here's a little tie-in to the Lancaster area with the Poes, and I was just like, this is just it's all the connections.
But Pennsylvania was one of the major areas because of the Quakers when they first colonized that area. William Penn was a big proponent of going back into Europe and traveling around and trying to get all the different types of religious groups to come into the new America, to come to his colony, because he made his colony open to everyone. It was the first equality colony that they had. They had female preachers, they had the Native Americans. They were open to everybody in the Quaker faith. So that's where you had a lot. But then you had Maryland, which was Catholics that were being persecuted that came over here.
Right.
So, and then you had all the Irelands, the Irish people were coming here after the potato famine, which is a lot of the reason why some of the records got lost, because there was such an influx in the middle of the 1800s because of the potato famine. And most of them were sending their children, like I was telling Carmen, they were sending their children over here in a kind of indentured servitude, because if they stayed in Ireland, they were going to die.
Yeah.
So they sent them over here, and they were used as apprentices, or basically enslavement.
Right.
But then after they got a certain age, they were kicked out of the house and left on their own. So.
Yeah.
So, go forth.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and since we're kind of, moving from Ireland into the Americas with John and Jane, and then having David Sr., just wanted to add in something about Cavan and the Kildare Parish. I looked up history on that area, because since we are doing Poe Places, I was like, this will be interesting to see if anything interesting or, a big event happened. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Yeah, spoiler alert, it's just
boring.
It seems like
farming.
Yes,
everyone's farming.
Yes.
You got cows.
It started out as a townland of 398 acres around the end of the 6th century. So it's, been there a long time. It was named after the Christian church founded by the chief poet of Ireland, and his name was Oblong Box. And I thought that was very apropos with being the poet of Ireland. I was like, that's really a neat little thing. But the area is very just beautiful with streams. There's a Kildare Hill that's prominent. And they were farming.
Yeah. Everybody was farming.
Yeah.
You
either have the highlands or the lowlands.
Yes.
You got the highlands where everybody's too cold and you can't really do a lot, and you got to do that stuff. Then you got the lowlands where everybody's farming.
Yes.
So,
But and I thought it was interesting too that it's like right in the middle of Ireland, like that area. It's Dublin is southeast of it, and it's like the most major city closest to it. So just kind of interesting.
Well, that's true. I mean, well, another thing is because of his the education of the family too, and their wealth, I guess they had a different introduction into the New World anyway.
Right.
Because they were offered more opportunities than a lot of the others coming in. It wasn't just servitude. It was if you were educated, if you were, wealthy to a certain point, and the people, like we were talking about how Lafayette and going a little further, the American Revolution wasn't one of his ancestors involved.
Yes, and I was going to say, speaking of, and I think Virginia, you sound like you know quite a bit. But yeah, David Poe Sr. was Poe's grandfather, and did serve in the Revolutionary War.
Yes, he did.
And didn't he actually help? Didn't you say something about he helped pay for provide for the Continental Army?
Yeah, I think Levi.
Levi.
He supplied them with clothing and other various supplies, and well over like $500 out of his own pocket, which of course in that day $500 was a lot more than
a lot of money
today. And when Lafayette did his tour of America, well after the revolution and everything, he visited David Poe's grave and said, "Here lies a noble spirit." He was
that's cool,
essential to the success of America in the revolution, and so much so that David Poe's wife, Elizabeth Carnes Poe, Muddy's mother, who Muddy was essential. The government gave her a pension, from because I think she also helped too. She was sewing.
I think so. Yes,
for the soldiers and stuff. So she was also essential, but just because she was a widow, and of course she was bedridden, she was paralyzed, and they had given her a pension. So and the Poe family, meaning Muddy, of course, and Virginia, and eventually Poe, they were living off of that little pension for so long until, of course, Elizabeth passed away. So that whole part, and them, being essential in the Revolutionary War and everything, kind of trickled down to Poe personally, you know, and his little family. You know, so it's interesting. So some of those things did directly affect Poe personally, or, you know, Virginia or Muddy, while other things about his ancestry, I'm sure he wasn't even aware of, you know?
Yes.
So,
yeah, because if you think about it, after his mother died, and then, you know, his dad disappeared before his mother died, so nobody knows what happened to Dad. So how much did he actually stay involved in that side of the family when the Allens actually took over?
right.
So he may not even have known.
Yeah. And there's a period of time too that I think not many people really know about or have heard, but I mean, there was a period of time where the Allens weren't even in the United States. They were in London.
Right.
So, you know, there, I mean, that
5 years,
5 or 6 years. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
And they were in London. So, you know, he didn't really have with his family that was back in the States. Not until they came back from London. So I think that was a big chunk of time that he could have potentially gotten to know members of that side of the family, but he was quite a way away.
Yeah, I think those
quite
primitive years of Poe's life, he was kind of disconnected from his roots really altogether.
Absolutely.
And I often kind of have this debate with some other Poe fans and enthusiasts who kind of romanticize this idea that Poe, you know, watched his mother dying and, you know, longed for her presence in his life. And while I'm sure that's true in his later years, that he did kind of miss that, you know, that potential of having his own mother in his life. You know, he was just about 3 years old when she passed away. How much does he actually remember of his mother, and how much can he actually recall in that time of his life? His father, he probably doesn't even know what his father looked like, you know? He probably didn't even remember.
So. Yeah.
You know, being so young.
Yeah, because his dad left right after Rosalie was born, from what I could find. And I can't imagine him having any kind of real like picturesque imagery, you know, in his mind.
Right. And I mean, I definitely know that he appreciated the talents of his mother, and he could appreciate that she was such a well-known and successful actress. You know, because it's the art of storytelling, and that's you know, and those talents were inherent in him. So I know he appreciated that in his mother, but other than that, I don't think he really recalled much about her specifically, you know, or his father. So really, when we talk about Poe's roots, it's like, you know, you have to wonder how much was he linked with his actual roots, like how much. I think it probably wasn't really until he did eventually move in with Maria Clem and Virginia and Henry,
grandma
that was probably the first time he was like, okay, this is my family, this is my blood, you know. And I think that's a great justification too as to why he eventually married Virginia, you know, and that he was trying to keep that family together. He was trying to keep his roots together, you know. And of course, among many other reasons that we could probably go on about all night, but you know, the rabbit hole.
See what I
mean? But those things come to mind when I think about Poe's early years and his roots, his ancestry.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, because he never really had a father figure in those young years that was, well, he had a father figure, but it was not a positive role model based on, you know, just the relationship that developed. And then, you know, I just, you know, you feel so bad for him, you know, losing all of the strong female role models that he had, you know, and really Maria or Muddy was really the long-term one that really fulfilled that role.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and she did it quite fiercely. I mean, I think about Maria Clem, and she did not put up with anything.
No,
I mean, she used to make sure they were fed. She used at all costs. I mean, she used to bring his manuscripts to the publishers for him, and she wouldn't leave until they bought those manuscripts.
Right.
I mean, she
Yep.
made sure that Poe was taken care of, and their little family was taken care of. And she was
Absolutely.
a pretty fierce woman. I like to think of her in that light because, you know, it's funny. She was probably that nurturing, caring, motherly type figure, but she was also like this kind of,
Don't mess with me.
don't mess with this woman, because I am sure if we met her on the street one day, we would be very scared of her, you know, in another life, we would be afraid. She was cool. She was a cool lady. So
absolutely. And even her picture, you know, just the one that is, I think there may be just one that I've seen, but she does look kind of fierce, like
yeah.
Well, and it fits with the time period, that type of people, because when I was thinking about Muddy and all this kind of stuff, I automatically went to where I thought about Dmitry Mendelev's mother. And most people, it's a science thing. Sorry, he's the one that came up with the actual periodic table, which wasn't a table when he created it. It was supposed to be a spherical.
Okay, Jeannie, you had to bring science.
I'm sorry, but it just brought me to that point, because if it wasn't for his mother, the mother's determination to get him to get his education, because he was the youngest of 11 children.
Yeah.
And his father had died. The children had all grown up. And so the mother traveled 1,200 miles to St. Petersburg. You know, he first went to Moscow, and he got refused entrance into the university there. So then they traveled on into St. Petersburg, where they finally got him into university. And she literally went off and died after she left him, because it was that rough of a situation. But I mean, he was 13 at the time. So, but yeah, it was that strong technique, and like, you know, Muddy being the person to push him and try to get his work out there, and to be his solid support system. And that unconditional love is very much a strong component in a lot of artists' lives.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, and Poe having that broken relationship from early on, with his mother leaving him so early, and then you know,
Francis Allen
passing. So Muddy, and then Virginia. So yeah, it was kind of like that was his support system, and he was going to hold on to it at all costs.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I love that. I love that tangent. That was perfect. Fitting.
Sorry.
A funny thing too that just kind of came to my mind as we were talking about Muddy is her own son, Henry Poe. I know there was like Poe's brother and then his cousin. They were both like William Henry or something. They were the same name.
Repeat of the names.
Yeah, the repeat of the names, but they went by like Henry or William. Like they had the same name, but they were both like William Henry. Her own son kind of wiped off the face of the earth. We don't really know what happened. He was probably a sailor, and he went off to sea, and he just never came back or something. That's kind of what scholars speculate, but
kind of figures with that time period.
Right. That happens so often.
So much.
And it was almost expected that if somebody went off to sea, you probably wouldn't see them again.
Yeah.
And you really wouldn't question if they didn't come back, you know? But she almost like never recalls her own son in her whole life, and any kind of letters or recollections we have from her. She talked about Eddie until her dying days, you know? So it's just funny that Poe was definitely a son to her.
Yes.
And you know, like in the poem, you know, to my mother, you know, more than a mother unto me than, you know, my own. And that really is true. The bond that they had just is unquestionable. So I think Poe's roots almost started with that little family. You know?
I think you're right. I mean, you know, biologically he got here by way of, you know, Ireland and all the Davids. But I think, Levi, you're right. His real core roots started with Muddy. Definitely.
And if he hadn't had such a short life, it probably would have spanned into more, and he would have probably delved more into the Poe background and found out more about his
Possibly.
own life
Yeah.
and his people and his
Possibly.
ancestry and
Mhm.
where he came from and all the connections. But
Yeah, because I always think, with all of his stories, predominantly being written in faraway lands, not just, the United States and places that he lived, he did get to travel to England, when he was with the Allens at the young age. I can only imagine that he would have wanted to go back to Europe as an adult to explore, Paris, the Rue Morgue, and all those things. And, now we're getting into the what ifs of the future.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm
But-
sorry, but Poe left that wide open.
He
for
did.
us.
Yeah.
He did. Absolutely.
I mean, the what ifs. I mean, think about all the what ifs around his actual death.
Yes.
The
Oh, yeah.
what ifs.
That's a
What
whole
if
nother
this has happened?
episode.
What if
Yeah.
that happened?
Yes.
What if his dad hadn't disappeared?
Yeah. And
So we could play that.
is
game.
there any more information on that you guys have found about his father's disappearance? I mean, because it's literally like he just deserted, abandoned the family, and then supposedly died around 1811.
Yeah, I've not found anything.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've read conflicting things. I mean, I was always under the impression that he left the family and he was just kind of erased off the map after that.
Yeah.
But then I've read other accounts where he had died, but there's no proof that he died. I think
Right.
John Allen might have told Poe in his later years that his father had died too, just to kind of put
Ease
the
the
end to
blow
it and
of-
just say, yeah, he passed away, because Poe's too young to even know what was going on. And if his father had just abandoned the family and they didn't know what happened, it was probably just easier to tell him, yeah, his father died. And we know
Right.
that his father had his vices with alcohol and such. So
Mhm.
it was probably just easier to say that he passed away. But it's tough. That's such a weird little part of of Poe's parents. We don't really know what happened. I've read things, kind of a lot of speculation and just conjecture, but it's possible that Rosalie Poe might have been conceived out of the marriage, possibly.
Yes.
I've read that, and that could have attested to David Poe's abandoning the family.
I read something about that as well, and it's
Yeah.
like, is it?
How do you? We just don't have the documentation, so all we can do is speculate.
Exactly.
And
because he could have gone on, left, and went somewhere else and had another family. Really.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Poe could have half siblings out there that we don't
Yes.
even know about. But it's just funny. You have to wonder, where is he buried? What happened? Maybe he got lost at sea. Maybe he decided to venture out, voyage out to sea. And I know roughly around that time period, merchants were losing their businesses because of the War of 1812 with Britain. And maybe at some point he decided, that a lot of men could make a living out on the oceans transporting their own goods and stuff. And so maybe he just jumped aboard a ship and he was gone, and
That's
never
true.
never to be seen again. You have to wonder, and I don't think Poe really cared too much about it anyway. He didn't really reflect too much about his father at least in any of the letters or any accounts that we have. He didn't seem to be too concerned by it.
No.
He was probably too hyper focused on the whole John Allen
Yes.
situation and kind of dealing with that father.
Right.
That father figure made his life miserable, so he didn't want to think about the one that wasn't around to make it miserable. So
Right.
Right.
Oh my goodness. One other thing that in research, based on where they came from, the Irish, I can't even talk. Irish.
Ireland?
Yeah.
Ireland.
I was gonna say Irish parish, but it was coming out Ireland sometimes. I probably need more caffeine. But was is it possible that there were Scottish roots, based, in the family? And I found lots of websites that were leading in that way. There was one I found that it seemed the website itself seemed a little convoluted, and it was like almost like this is a conspiracy. He was Scottish. He was not Irish. And it was just really weird. It was really weird. And so
well,
now I'm shaking my head no. No.
Well, back in the, early American history, we're all Scots-Irish, one way or the other. I mean, sorry, Levi, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that whole thing probably started. I mean, John Allen was Scottish,
right,
primarily.
Right.
So I think maybe
there you go. Yeah,
people jumble that up like, oh, his his father. You know how things get kind of
misconstrued.
So if people hear, oh, he had a Scottish father, foster father, adopted father, whatever, people might think, oh, well, Scottish. There was just no connection there. Actually, it just happened to be where John Allen was Scottish, and had his merchant business in Richmond, Virginia, where Poe just happened to be when his parents passed away or mother passed away, and just kind of like just by association, not by actual biology,
Exactly. I just thought it was really interesting that especially this one particular website I found, that they were just adamant that he was Scottish. But I do think Virginia and Levi, it's the whole Allen thing.
Well, let's put it this way. His great great grandmother was also from County Cavan, and she was also from Drang. And his great grandmother, she was from Ballymoney in Antrim, County Antrim. And so it's like,
where's the Scottish?
Where
is it now?
Failing to see how that's even connected.
Exactly. No, I agree. Totally agree. I just was going to bring that up just because I thought it was kind of an interesting thing that some people have these thoughts out there about that.
And at the same time, too, we don't know. I mean, we do know his roots based on the documentation that we do have. But I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if you have taken like the DNA test, the ancestral test, and I mean, things that came up for me, I'm like, I had no idea. No one in my family knew that I had Egyptian roots, but here I am, like 10% Egyptian. I didn't know that, so it's like, maybe he had some Scottish in him. We don't know. Cause just the way people go back a long ways. So somewhere down the line, he could have had many different ethnicities, in his
it also comes down to the historical area of who actually conquered the area, because you have all the Visigoths, you have the Romans, you have the Turks, you have the Egyptians, you have all of that, the Iberian Peninsula with the Spanish. And so, it's like you said, when you do those DNA tests, you find out things and you're going, huh?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
I mean, I found out my 7th great grandfather was from Sardinia. I was like,
okay.
Sardinia? Really? Just one out of all of them? So he just happened to just come off the island one day and decided to go north, apparently. So, and then he got mixed in with a bunch of others. So,
Oh, wow.
You never know.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. I've got Western Africa, and I've got Northern Africa, and I've got Asian. I'm like, my people were just confused. So, I'm just saying.
We're all mutts in some way or another. We're just mutts. No one's a purebred, Yeah,
I blame the Phoenicians.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, they never really had an actual home base for anything.
That's
so
true.
They were the true travelers, the navigators, and they just went everywhere. So let's want to blame anybody. Let's start with the Phoenicians. They're just still there. They traveled. They made everything possible.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Hey, I didn't go down that rabbit hole that time.
No.
Yeah,
no.
I'm gonna blame you.
This might have been we should have did a disclosure. This is what potentially happens when you do put 4 Poe brains together.
Yes.
There's some
pros
and
bad
cons.
Enough when you got
we do go down the rabbit hole. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You get the whole burrow with us. Not just the hole. You're just going down the burrow. Sorry, I just would. Okay.
That's totally okay.
It goes.
Yeah, it would be interesting to be able to take the little bit of hair that like the Poe Museum has like some of his hair to find out.
Only if the follicles are still attached.
Yeah, true.
Otherwise, you wouldn't get any DNA.
Very true.
Yeah, I know they tested it for potential causes of his death.
Yes.
Not too long ago, for like maybe like 5-6 years ago, they did that. But
that sounds
which nothing really came back conclusive. He ate a lot of shellfish. That was interesting, but I mean, not so much considering he was primarily on the East Coast, and that's probably the cheapest, most available food available to him was shellfish and seafood. But
absolutely
interesting though. But yeah, if only we had kind of that, like the follicle, the root to maybe find out a little bit more.
Yeah. We'd find out he was a mutt too. So
yeah, probably, and then we'd really be having a longer episode. He was this and that, and
unless he was inbred, because they have found that DNA, if the inbred for like the royal families and stuff, that they refused to crossbreeds and stuff, and they would inbred. That was the only place they can find 100% DNA from that specific area.
That's true,
because they wouldn't. They weren't branching out. They weren't.
That's true. The whole Habsburgs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the only time you're ever going to get a 100% for an area is if you find inbreeding in the family.
That's true. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Hopefully he wasn't.
Yeah.
You never know. Too bad Poe's not around to tell us.
Exactly.
Tells a lot of things.
Exactly.
Any other information like that we didn't bring up about his roots that you guys can think of that,
I'm trying to think. I mean,
it was our shortest episode ever.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the only solo episode, Virginia. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I remember listening to it, and you did a fantastic job with it.
Thank you. My 12 minutes of fame there.
12 minutes of there's only so much you can do with that. I mean, it's pretty much just names, dates, and locations. We don't really have much about these people personally, or their careers, their lives, their anything. It's just very basic information. Honestly, nothing that is essential to being a Poe enthusiast, to knowing anything about Poe. It's just we know his roots are Ireland and England, and
Yeah.
And
that is a problem that they had, is unless you were very, very well off, a member of some kind of status, which while they weren't horribly off, they weren't like dukes and duchesses and kings and queens and all that kind of stuff. So the record keeping, his great-great-grandfather was a farmer.
Yeah.
My great-grandfather was a farmer.
Yeah.
Education wasn't there for literature to be able to be literate to keep those records, and most of the time the only records they ever kept is if they had a Bible, a family Bible, births and deaths.
Yep.
That was it.
Yeah.
And some churches every week would keep record of who came to mass or who came to that service, and
or the Sayer's office when you had tax deeds and that kind of stuff.
That too.
It just, it's very lacking in the meat of everything. You just get the bare bones. So.
Yeah. And now in today's time, there's, documentation that we have as individuals. There's more than everybody wants to have, probably.
Yeah. I feel
we're on the other end of the spectrum.
Those people in 100 years, once they find the social media, I just don't want to think about finding all those going, what in the it's like, is that a person? No.
No. Have you guys read the book Poland by J.W. Ocker?
Yes.
That
was a great.
yeah, I have
I
not
don't
read.
remember if that one's behind me or if it's upstairs.
I haven't read the entire thing. Like what I usually do is take the chapter, like if I'm traveling, and read it. And there's some that we traveled to the area, but I forgot to read it beforehand. But I did skim through his England chapter today, and it just makes me want to go over there, more, because he even said in that chapter that there were some areas he didn't get to go and hopes to go eventually someday to see all the other Poe things that, are still out there over there.
Now you better go soon. According to the news, they're going to start charging people to come visit.
Oh, weird. Okay.
England, or the United Kingdom is going to start charging to come visit.
Huh.
Yeah. It was something in, how it is. They gotta make money somehow.
Yeah.
Everything's a money grab nowadays.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, and the COVID lockdown didn't help. So
no.
That book is a great little field guide. That's what I was going to say. I mean, even if you don't even have to purchase it to read it through, you can just purchase it to keep in your library. And then, when you're traveling, flip to a chapter that is, geographically where you're headed, and you can get all the Poe stuff there. And it's a great little start to delve into a Poe area.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Another
thing that was coming to mind too. Sorry, when you were saying about England and how Poe was, I think about his accent, and now we have accounts of his accent, of course, from his lectures and stuff. And he had that slight Southern accent, but it wasn't a heavy Southern accent. And we have those light descriptions, but I think he was, he attended schooling in England during those primitive years of of life. His foster father had a Scottish accent. He was then primarily raised in the South, so he had all these kind of accents around him. You have to wonder how exactly he picked up an accent himself. What was it? It was probably like a little combination of everything. It's kind of interesting to think about. I know. We know he had like an elegant, speaking voice, and that he could really captivate an audience with his recitations and his lectures. And but it's interesting talking about his roots and all these geographical locations that relate to Poe, how they affected just something like as trivial as how he spoke,
his dialect and
so that was another thing that kind of came to mind as we were kind of talking.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I took a class in my undergraduate on linguistics, and it was just fascinating learning about all the different things about different dialects and the history tied into some of it. And so, like with what you mentioned, with all of those things blended together, really he probably had a very unique accent based on all of those things combined, not, especially if it's just, because he didn't just stay in one area and adopt that dialect from just one area. So it's just really neat to think about that.
I wish he stayed a little bit longer in Providence, Rhode Island. Maybe he would have spoke like me a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, probably.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah. I know the first time I visited Boston with one of my friends, and there was two of us that were from East Tennessee, and we were going to Massachusetts. And the first misunderstanding that we had was we were driving from the airport. We had rented a minivan, and the Bostonian friend looks at me and she goes, "What do you think about the Audi?" And I went, "The what?" She goes, "The Audi." And I went, "As opposed to what? An innie?" I thought she was talking about belly buttons, because the way she said it sounded like an Audi.
Oh my gosh.
She goes, "No." Then this is where it reverts down to where you see these movies where you think if you talk louder and you start pointing and you're making all these things, people understand you better. So then she started pointing at this car and she goes, no, that. And I went, "You mean an Audi?" And she goes, "Yes." And I said, "Why didn't you just say that?"
Oh my goodness.
And she goes, "I did." So it was like, but what really goes is we passed a sign that said PABODY. So you got to understand, and probably Levi knows where I'm going with this. she goes, and I said, oh, we have a Peabody, Tennessee. And she goes, what? I said, yeah, we have a Peabody, Tennessee. She goes, that's not how you say it. I go, well, how do you say it? And she goes, it's Peabody. I said, what? Did you? Yeah, did you forget that you use vowels in the North? What?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in the South, we just drop the last part of everything. You guys just forget vowels altogether.
And we can even go as far. I've heard it Pabity. Like just
Pabity.
very like
Pabity. It was Peabody, and then it was Abbey, and I'm like, what? It was an Annie? I was like, okay. But yeah, so I can actually attest that if Poe stayed long enough in the Rhode Island area, he would really have a messed up dialect. I don't even know what kind of words he would create. Whether he had consonants, half of them, with them, but
some new words could have come up.
Yeah, he'd probably create. He would be Shakespeare. He would be the American version of Shakespeare, coming up with brand new words.
Yes,
because he doesn't even know what he's going to use in his words. Okay,
this is true.
All right, so now let's get out of that rabbit hole and get back.
All right. Well, I feel like we've kind of exhausted all of the roots and
the audience too. So
the audience. Maybe even ourselves a little bit. I don't know.
The main audience, my live audience member, he is completely passed out on my lap.
Oh,
well, so
he's never interested in what we have to say. So
yeah,
I'm not offended
it's
by
one
that.
of our producers, Elliot.
Yeah. Well, we just got the side
he's on
eye.
my lap and he's somewhat snoring.
Yeah, Poe just walked by giving us the side eye. Like, what are you people doing?
Well, because he left at one point. He went up the stairs. He just came down the stairs, and he just kind of looked at, you're still doing this.
Exactly.
Oh, he's up.
Cue,
he's up. So everyone can say hi to Elliot. And he's going to be
so cute.
Yeah.
So cute.
He's so exhausted. He's like, people, leave me alone.
And Levi, what did you say your cat's name was?
Oh,
this is Elliot.
Yeah, but Levi told us he
was telling us about he's got a cat now.
So I ended up naming her Clementine so that I could call her Clem.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
She's an orange cat. So I was like, all right, Clementine, and I can call her Clem after Maria Clem, because I already named my dog Ginny after Virginia Clem, not my co-host.
After me.
Yeah,
it's after me.
Yeah, it was after you.
The other Virginia Poe.
You caught me.
That's right.
But Elliot is adorable. Yes, Elliot is adorable.
Yes. All cats are adorable.
Oh, and he just did a very bad thing. He knocked my AirPod off my table here, and he is now playing with it.
Oh,
that's about
If we're doing cat show and tell, she just happened to be on the table.
Oh, so cute! So
that's
cute.
her.
Yay, orange cats for the win!
Yeah,
exactly.
She's good, I guess.
Yeah,
I was going to say Poe the cat is eating right now. Otherwise, we could bring him in, and then we would have Halloween with the orange cats and the black cats.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, it is March. We are halfway to Halloween.
Halfway there.
That's right. That's exactly right.
We're near the Ides of March, so we got to,
a
stab
couple more days
back a few times, but we'll be fine.
Yes. Well, all right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been awesome.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us. This was fun.
Yes.
We got to do
we'll
it more.
have to have you on our show at some point.
Oh, we'd love to.
Yes.
We'd love to. And
as soon as I can figure out that technology.
Yes. Technology is wonderful when it cooperates.
When it works.
Yes. But definitely want to say that if you are in the Baltimore area, April 1st and 2nd, please come to the Telltale Steampunk Festival, where we will have a vendor booth, and Virginia will be there for Beyond the Oblong Box doing, you said 2 different.
Yeah, they have us from 4:30 to 5:30 in the main ballroom. So we're probably going to end up doing 2 separate episodes.
Okay.
And of course, Levi will be there too, but as a head a la Futurama.
Virtual.
Yeah.
Yes.
Futurama style floating head.
Yes.
That works.
It does work. Definitely. Yeah, so definitely come and join us there. That would be amazing. We know some people that are coming, and definitely check out their podcast. I know I listen to it on Spotify, and I know you guys are on several other platforms as well. And
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you guys have a Patreon, and just please go check them out. They are awesome and have wonderful Poe content. So yes, we love sharing with you guys.
Yes.
Oh, we love sharing with you. I mean, holy moly.
We got more peeps. We got more peeps. Though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So on that note,
because I feel that in this heavens above, the angels whispering to one and then can find among their burning terms of love none so determined as that of the mother.
and on that note, we are
Poe
out.